Congress to the campaign trail. Sexual assault has been a topic of discussion every day on the national level. Tonight, the issue was front and center at Regent University. They held an event called Hour to Empower. Robert Boyd was there and joins us now in the studio with the story.
Well, Regina, the nonprofit organization Fear to Freedom travels to colleges and universities across Hampton Roads, teaching students about the impacts of sexual assault. It's a topic that is more prevalent now than ever. Dozens of students gathered in the Regent University Library Wednesday to listen and learn about a topic that isn't just in the national news, but in their daily lives.
Unfortunately, sexual assaults do go on college campuses. We wish that they didn't, but because they do, we want to make sure that we're empowering students with information, awareness, how to stay safe.
According to the nonprofit organization Fear to Freedom, 90% of all sexual assaults on college and university campuses are not reported.
I think that's a terrifying statistic, and that's something that as college students we should really work to prevent in any way that we can.
Junior Renee Hogan said it's crucial for her friends to look out for one another. No victim should ever feel like they're helpless or alone.
We're not blind to these things. We know that they do even happen on a Christian campus, and we want to be aware and prepared to be able to respond properly.
As part of the event, students put together aftercare kits that will be given to sex assault victims after they go to the hospital.
When we have survivors come in, they come in all sorts of different moods: angry, upset, shock.
Nurse Leanne Crawford says being treated for a sexual attack is one of the most difficult things anyone will ever go through. Yet a simple kit with supplies, clothes, a teddy bear, and a note of support can make all the difference.
I have seen it where the patients and survivors grab onto those bags and they hug them. It means something to them. They pull out the bear, they pull out some of the information that is very specific to them.
Fear to Freedom would not comment on how national politics has affected how we look at sexual assault on the local level. But they did say when it comes to victims, they all need to be treated with respect.
That there shouldn't be victim blaming, that you should believe them and let the investigation take the course that it's going to take.
Now, Fear to Freedom has distributed over 20,000 aftercare kits to hospitals and shelters nationwide. Live in the studio, Robert Boyd, 13 News Now.